Good afternoon to you from Wilmington, North Carolina. I am Mark Sudduth. It is Monday, the 26th of June, 2023, and it's time for our hurricane outlook and discussion. On the update today, we're going to take a look at whether or not Cindy is able to make a comeback. It is possible, and we're going to look at an awakening Pacific. It's finally starting to wake up over there. I believe it might be the longest we've ever gone, or the latest starting Eastern Pacific hurricane season is another way to put it. We will take a look at all of that, plus some severe weather in the east, and I am getting ready to hit the road again, driving into that severe weather. Not on purpose. I'll talk about that. You'll see. Stay tuned till the end, and you'll see how it all makes sense. All right? Good to have you join me on this Monday afternoon. Let's see what's going on out there. First of all, the remnants of Cindy out here in the southwest Atlantic. 30% chance of making a comeback, I guess is one way to put it, and it should move around. There's a pretty big area of high pressure sitting out here, so it'll move around the periphery of that into the North Atlantic. Nothing at all to steer it back towards the United States. We don't have a big high sitting over the top of it like this. That's what would do that. We don't have that. That's not there, so we don't have to worry about it making a turn back towards the lower 48. Meanwhile, in the Eastern Pacific, a couple of areas of possible development. I don't think we're going to have too much of a threat from mainland Mexico over here. We might have to watch this system later on down the road, but that's several days away. For now, though, a couple of development possibilities out there, but nothing too threatening as we start the week off. All right, a few things to note. There would be the remnants of Cindy. This is an interesting tropical wave in the Atlantic. This will approach the islands down here. So you folks in Barbados, Trinidad, Tobago, and elsewhere on the southern part of the Lesser Antilles, the Windward Islands especially, yeah, you could get some squalls with this over the next day or so. Even, yes, tropical waves can bring inclement weather. You don't need a depression or stronger to cause problems. So just pay attention to this as it comes through. Meanwhile, the remnants of Brett, I almost said Brent. It was almost coming out. It really, Brent is who works with us down here in the Virgin Islands. But Brett, nope, Brett is gone. It has dissipated. Cindy's dissipated too. But as I said there, Cindy might try to make a comeback. Hey, if you look closely, you can see a little bit of African dust out here. Finally, even that has been really late coming. Also, you can just tell by the way the clouds are out here, a much more stable and dry air mass. We have lost the assistance of the convectively coupled Kelvin wave, so the Atlantic is returning to a more normal June state, if you will. All right, looking at our vorticity, what would you call it, like fingerprint, right? Well, there's Cindy. There's that one feature I was showing you approaching the windwards, and there are the remnants of Brett. Other than that, nothing else really going on in the Atlantic Basin. We will, though, be watching this pretty closely. Still has that nice rounded appearance, and it could find a more favorable environment up through this area over the coming days. We'll stay on top of it, of course. Meanwhile, in the East Pac, a couple of areas of interest down here. This one's already got some rotation to it, a little bit of spin. This is just a big old mess, but it should consolidate eventually, and both of these would be our first named storms. Pretty late going there in the East Pac, and I do find that to be interesting, so let me come back on. When I'm on, it must be important, right? So I can talk to you. I do think it's interesting and intriguing that we have not had a named storm in the Eastern Pacific just yet in an El Nino year. That means we're not getting a lot of upward motion, and just the propensity of storms to develop in the East Pac so far, 26 days into June, fully a month into the hurricane season for the East Pac. It started May 15th, so we're talking almost 6 weeks now, no named storms. Kind of makes you go, that's interesting. It's just not very fertile out there, so that might give, especially the Caribbean and the Gulf, a better chance of becoming active as the season progresses for the Atlantic side. Just something to keep in mind. All right, looking at the vorticity signature for the Pacific. Again, some of these areas down here, nothing really congealing just yet. Everything is still generally kind of amorphous, as we call it. But I think eventually we will see that rounded look that is the telltale sign of something to start getting its act together over there in the East Pac. Looking at the GFS, first of all, GFS has let me down. Yes, we got lots of modeling. Canadian, Euro, GFS, UK Met, JMA, all kinds of modeling out there. But the global forecast system really overdid it on Brett. And I know some of you, early on, you got to admit it, you were guilty of it, saying, oh, it looks like Brett's going to turn out to sea well before the islands, because it looked like the GFS was strengthening it quickly. It was finding the weakness that was out there. And then, yes, it was going to try to turn it out well before reaching the islands. But the GFS overdid it. It took that convection. It kind of ran wild with it. It had more favorable conditions that were actually there. And as we know, Brett went through the Caribbean. Pretty formidable overall, especially for June. I mean, you don't want to just discount it either. But the GFS definitely overdoing things. So I'm a little suspicious of the GFS this year. They tweak it every year. It's never going to just work perfect all the time. And that's just a bummer. I don't know a lot about how the computer modeling world works. Some years the GFS does better than others. Some years the Euro does better than others. They always seem to be battling each other like a couple of rival sports teams. So there's that little caveat sidebar for you. There, with all that being said, there's the remnants of Cindy. There's that tropical wave energy that I showed you, and there would be the leftovers of Brett. So for now, let's just focus on this corridor right through here and what happens with the remnants of Cindy. Tries to make a comeback there after about 48 hours or so. Yeah, taking its sweet time. 12Z GFS here just coming in. We're now at about day 4. Pretty weak looking overall in the model. Maybe it's finally come to its senses, so to speak, and not much comes of it after about day 5 or so. Getting rid of the telestration. What's going on in the deep tropics? Let's take it back. I like this little thing right here, by the way, that Dr. Cowan, Levi Cowan, has put. It's like a little snap feature. You can go back, boop, and it snaps to it. Pretty cool little doodad there that he put in to the coding. Watch out here. Maybe some activity again in the main development region. Did I see something try to perk up? Maybe, just maybe, any little reflection out there. Oh, there it goes, especially later. Yeah, we'll watch for that. If we get another system, I'm just saying, if we get another main development region storm, even a depression at this point, as we get into July, late June into July, we're almost done with June, that really would mean something. I mean, we won't be able to deny it at that point that the Atlantic is producing systems even in these periods where we don't have particularly strong forcing going on. In other words, the conditions are just not ideal. It's July coming up, for goodness sakes. Just something to watch. Won't get too excited about it, so to speak, just yet. All right, trying to get me out of here, so we go over to the Pacific side of things. Snap back to the beginning there. Again, nice feature from Dr. Cowan. In the East Pac, pay attention to this area and this area as I put this into motion. Again, nothing too substantial in terms of threatening for Mexico. Both of these systems, they wind up, yes, could become a hurricane, either one of them. But it's going to be really like the water temperatures, once you get to about right here, really going to fall off for that system. And I'll show you that in a minute on the anomalies map. But something to watch. The East Pac finally coming to life there. Neither system having direct impacts to Mexico. This one could bring some showers and heavier squalls, depending on how big the feeder bands are and that kind of thing. Close enough to warrant you paying attention if you live in southern Mexico. Let's just put it that way. All right, as I was mentioning, if this system in the Pacific, that first one there, gets over here, that's a pretty sharp cutoff, and it's going to be in the cold anomalies, and it's going to die a pretty quick death. In fact, most of the area over here that our cyclones would develop this time of year is pretty limited. You see everything else to the north and west below normal water temperatures, and I think that too is intriguing because it limits the geographic area where we can get development this year, kind of squeezing, because we don't get development down at the equator, right? There's just not enough of a Coriolis force. And then anything out in the central Pacific, yeah, we could get development out here, but not likely with those cold anomalies that we see related to the cold PDO, the Pacific Decadal Oscillation. Just another intriguing piece of the puzzle. Notice too that the Nino 3.4 area all through here, and we're going to show you this in more detail in a minute, not very strong right now. Yes, there's an El Nino, but it is not skyrocketing, and every day that goes by, that you've got this in place, it is more and more likely that we're going to have a very busy August and September unless something truly dramatic changes in the East Pack. Now this is interesting. This is off the Tropical Tidbit site, tracking the 3.4 region of the INSO areas. We've had a steady rise. You can just draw a line and say, yep, we're definitely in an El Nino. But look at these cooling periods that we have had. These are really easy to spot on the Hofmolar diagrams. Yes, one of the cooling periods happened here. This is still going on. That might explain a lot about what we are seeing here. This most recent dip, or maybe even right here, I guess we're in the current time. The bottom line, we're not seeing a tremendous spike straight up towards 1.5, 2 degrees Celsius above the long-term average. In fact, the data set shows, we just round it up and call it 0.9. So we're almost a degree warmer in the 3.4 region, but it's cooling off a little bit. We'll watch this. We'll see what it looks like a week from now when I revisit this next Monday. We'll be in the first couple of days of July. Also of interest are the subsurface anomalies. Yes, these are really impressive over here, but that is at least 50 meters deep or so. Some of it's 50, some of it's a little bit closer to the surface, but it's mostly the eastern Pacific, the Nino 3.4 areas through here, and it's just we don't have a lot of subsurface warmth coming along. And if I think I can control F5 and it reanimates the GIF animation, look what happens. It looks like there's reinforcements coming. See, this is the subsurface warmth. It's like, okay, it dwindles, it's coming back. Oh, there we go, and then poof, starts to dwindle again. So most of the subsurface really strong anomalies are in the eastern Pacific. I just don't see how the El Nino is going to get very strong in time to hamper the Atlantic season, especially as we get closer to August and September, with that kind of a profile in place for the Atlantic multi-decadal oscillation. The AMO look very, very strong right now. All right, as I was alluding to, I'm going to bring me back on for a moment here. I'm going to be traveling. I'm going to be going up to Stony Brook, New York, and doing a presentation for an emergency management and first responder conference up there. That is Wednesday, I think. Yes, it's Wednesday. A lot going on up here. And then on Thursday, I'm going to go back to New York City and visit my friends over at Fox Weather. Looking forward to that. Should be on the various and sundry shows all day. Probably got to get up at like 5 a.m. That's going to be a lot of fun. I can handle it, though. But I got to get there, right? And I got to drive through this enhanced risk. So let's get rid of me and talk about this, because this is important. That kind of orangish color in there, whatever that is, yeah, we could have some serious weather here. The Piedmont, through the Carolinas there, even the slight risk in two parts of South Carolina, so the Carolinas all-inclusive, down to the coastal plain. Yes, it could be a big severe weather day. The tornado threat, only 2%. But again, that's not zero, right? The bigger threat, of course, will be damaging wind with some significant hail, especially in parts of the upstate and Piedmont of South Carolina, North Carolina. So do pay attention to that if you are in that area, all right? And like I said, I got to turn my phone off there. Someone's calling me. It's okay. I got to drive through all that, so that'll be a lot of fun later today. And not to, ignore the other areas. Whoops, let's do this. There we go. Slight risk in parts of the Black Hills region into Wyoming, and then a slight risk down here, parts of the Gulf Coast. But this is the big attention getter, I think, because millions and millions of people live along the I-95 corridor and down to the Chesapeake Bay. So pay attention. I certainly will as I drive. That could be interesting. I'm going to take the vehicle cam with me just in case. All right, a couple things that I've done over here at HurricaneTrack.com. By the way, we don't do a lot with the website itself because of social media and Patreon and, our insider site, which is its whole other site called Hurricane Track Insider. HurricaneTrack.com is more of a billboard and a brand, but nevertheless, we still exist. It's over there, and we put the paper map I keep talking about. It's like, let me just put it on the home page of the website. I've got about a dozen left, so if you want to order one, you better hurry. They're going to be gone soon, which is great. I appreciate it because, again, they are a work of art. I drew those myself a long time ago, and it's just cool to have a big paper tracking map. It's 20 by 28 inches. It's enormous. It's a poster. It's not a little 8.5 by 11 deal. And I haven't been promoting this enough, and I feel bad because CJ has put our store together. Yeah, we're not as big as like Mr. Beast or somebody, but we still have a merch store with all kinds of good stuff. And you can just go to HurricaneTrack.com, click on HT Store, and there you go. All right? And by the way, this is also where you log in for our insider site and our live cams and everything that's done through the HurricaneTrack.com homepage, in case you were wondering. All right, that is it. Let me finish this up, get this online for you, and then I have to hit the road and start making my way up I-95. Yippee. Good old DC waiting for me. DC traffic. Probably hit it right around rush hour. Oh well, it is what it is. At least I've got an exciting week ahead. You guys take it easy out there. As always, thanks for tuning in. I do appreciate it. A big welcome to all the new subscribers of the YouTube channel, too. It's good to have you. And the views and everything, that just makes me feel good that you pay attention to what I have to say, and hopefully you learn something. All right, that's it. Have a good rest of your Monday. I'm Mark Sutter. Thanks for tuning in. I will have updates throughout the week, though, and we'll talk later on as I travel.